Hi, so with PCAS 2, what I wanted to do is a video looking at the force feedback setup for a T300 Thrustmaster wheel, which is what I use. No, I'm also using a 599 Alcantara rim with this rather than the standard one. I always used to use raw, in fact used raw pretty much from day one with the T300. However, what I found as the DLC came out is some of the cars are bloody awful when it comes to using the raw setting. Some of them just have almost no communication, overly light, and just really horrible to drive as a result with raw. One of the worst offenders for this is the car you see in front of you, which is the Ferrari 458 Challenge car. So I spent quite a bit of time playing around with the force feedback and found that I actually got better results with the Immersive flavour. So as you can see here, Immersive, it's designed to as closely as match, and yes, it is using canned effects, but it is trying to reflect as much as possible the road surface, curb, suspension movement, etc. that you get naturally. Feel free to give informative or raw a go yourselves if you want. It's going to depend on what car you're using, but this is my setup and what I'm using here. So yeah, I've gone for Immersive rather than raw because of the changes I mentioned. Then coming down to the gain setup, the gain I've whacked all the way up to 100, and the main reason I've done this is gain at 100 and then controlling it by the volume, which we'll talk about in a moment, I actually feel is a better way to go about this. So with the T300 I found gain right the way up to 100 works perfectly well, particularly as the Immersive setup and the informative one will, after you've driven with it for a couple of laps, any car doesn't matter, with it for a couple of laps, hit curbs a bit hard and things like that, is it will adjust itself so that you don't get any clipping. So you can set it 100 and just let everything else work itself out. So volume, this is the actual weight of the wheel, and I've got this set to 25. I find that works quite well. Overall, I find it a good balance. One thing I have done though on my T300 base is I've mapped the L3 and the R3 buttons to volume increase and decrease, and this allows me to play with the volume for differing cars. So if I get in a car and I find the steering's a bit too light for my liking, I can just hit the R3 button and up the volume temporarily, or if I get in something and it's too heavy, I can whack L3 and adjust it down and loosen up the weight a little bit. But I find 25 a good balance for most cars. Tone then is basically, this is almost a blending option here. So as you reduce the tone, you get more feedback from the track surface, curbs and things like that, and if you increase it, as you increase it, it then starts balancing it more towards tyre feel, slip and those kind of things. So what I tend to find is that 40 is a good balance here, so it's very slightly 4:6 ratio effectively biased towards track surface, but we're still getting a bit of the tyre slip and things like that in there, and I find this works well for most cars for myself. But this is how you balance it yourself. Reduce the tone if you want more surface detail and curb detail, and increase the tone if you want more tyre slip and things like that, so more communication from what the tyres are doing, etc. And keep in mind that it's a blend, so you're still getting both, it's just the ratio between the two. And then finally, FX is the strength of the surface detail. So you do need to balance this a little bit with the tone, particularly if you're using the tone to balance it towards track surface details and things like that. So I've only got this set to 10 because I find this really can result in the car becoming almost uncontrollable over curbs if you have it set too high, particularly if your tone is biased towards a lower number. So as we mentioned earlier, biased more towards the track surface and curb detailing. So 10 I find is more than adequate enough. Any more than that and it starts getting quite unrealistic in the amount of force feedback it's throwing at you. The final one on here, menu spring strength, has nothing to do with driving. This is all to do with how quickly and how much torque will be put into self-centering the wheel when you go into menus. So if you've been driving and your wheel's turned at 90 degrees, as you hit a menu, it will self-center, and it's how quickly. I've never changed this off of the 0.4. I find that absolutely fine. Less risk of breaking your fingers and things. So yeah, that's a quick look at the setups I'm using currently with Project Cars 2 full force feedback, and a quick run through the options and what they do and why I've moved away from the raw setting. Don't get me wrong, I really did like raw, but the fact that it's broken with a few of the cars, the 458 Challenge in particular, just grated on me, so I had to play around. I've started using Immersive, and this is the setup I'm using. If you found this interesting, please do hit the like button. If you've got any comments or want to share your own setups or thoughts, please do so in the comments down below, and if you want to see more like this, subscribe away. Thanks very much. Bye.